Hello, nerds. Nerds for humanity. It has been a long time since I've live streamed. As some of you know, and were very generous in your well wishes on Twitter, I got COVID for the first time. Last tested positive last Sunday. Yeah, and I'm better now. I'm not 100%. In fact, I'm stuck in New York City because I was supposed to be back in California by now. But according to the CDC guidelines, I shouldn't travel for 10 days. So I'm waiting it out, but tested negative for the first time this morning. So I'm excited about that. And while I was recovering from good old COVID BA5, it looks like there was some big news in the Forward Party. And I thought we could do a live stream about it. So I'm coming to you live from New York City, just near Times Square. And I'm curious where everybody else is. Let's just call out some of the early joiners. We got Vaughn, who's also a member. Thank you, Vaughn. And if you're not a member, click that join link and you can become one and help support the channel. I love books a lot. Hello, nerds. Thank you, I love books a lot, for wishing me well. And Elizabeth Norris, a very long-time supporter of the channel. I love books a lot is from Chicago. Excellent. All right, so today's live stream is going to be about the Forward Party. Let's get right into it. Let's start with a lot of the news coverage that I saw. It kind of got national headlines. Oh, Elizabeth Norris is from Michigan. Excellent. Okay, so if you see here, you had a bunch of headlines. These are local ones, very recent. Dakota, News 12, Yonkers Times, but then CBS, Newsmax, CNN. Ooh, James Carville slams the Forward Party. The Hill, National Review. Ooh, not a lot of unfavorable headlines. Southern Poverty Law Center, Yahoo Finance. So definitely generated some buzz. Fox News. Let's take a look at what James Carville said, because he's a pretty interesting character, and he definitely is a memorable guy. So let's see if I can share this Carville. Let's see. Let's stop sharing this tab and share this tab. And I have to apologize in advance. I am on my very small MacBook Air, which is weak sauce in terms of processing power. So it may take a while for me to pull up this Carville video, because it's like loading a million ads or whatever. Think Beyond says Carville is a fool. If he doesn't like it, it must be a good idea. Well, Carville was kind of a big deal back in the day. You know, maybe he represents kind of a different era. Let me see if I can play this. And I have a feeling it's going to make me watch some ads. So I'm going to let those run first. And then after we get through the ads, I'll share my tab. But generally, what I did notice was not only was James Carville, but also some folks on the right have been pretty dismissive of a new third party. So definitely taking shots from both sides. And let's just see a little bit about what Carville said. Okay, here we go. Let me pause this. Turn on the volume. See if I can share the right tab. Share screen. Oh, Mike Sondorp is joining us. He was on Twitter and he was actually asking me, hey, are you going to do a video about all these events? So Mike Sondorp, you're the reason that I'm doing this. Okay, so here is the Carville video.
I guess appeal to moderate voters in the middle. I mean, how much of this has to do with how Joe Biden is doing these days? And I guess I'm also curious, James, what you think. You know, you helped Bill Clinton beat a guy named Ross Perot back, I guess it was 30 years ago. Could this forward party have the same kind of impact this time around?
I think a nation awash in really stupid ideas, this stands out as a really stupid idea. Ralph Nader basically elected George W. Bush in 2000. Jill Stein basically elected Donald Trump in 2016.
So let me just give a little commentary before we go on the rest of Carville's statement. This is a very common one, which is that the third party candidate is a spoiler, or the third party ballot basically doesn't win, but only causes one of the other two parties to lose. And I think mathematically there is some truth to that. There is a risk of that for sure. I imagine a lot of the pro third party people would say, hey, look, you have to be willing to shake things up and actually present those existing two parties with that kind of risk of losing because of the emergence of this third party, if you want either A, the long-term future having more than two choices, or B, forcing one of the existing two parties or both of them to improve what they're offering. So it's kind of like, yeah, more competition does change the dynamics of the race, and it could in the near term harm the lesser of two evil parties that you might currently support. But, you know, ultimately is the benefit of challenging them and having more competition in the long run greater than the cost of potentially changing the results of an upcoming election or two or three?
And the only possible thing this could do is bleed some moderate Republicans off of voting for whoever but the Democratic nominee is. This thing is going nowhere. It's vanity. It's look at me. It's performance art. And I'm, to say the least, I'm not a fan of this effort. You know, it's something editorial writers and pontificators like that's about it.
Ooh, Carville, very hard on on the forward party. But I do think
Wealth is shutting down the office for Mike's retirement party.
Hold on.
Worth is giving the employee who spent half his life with you a party of a lifetime.
Closing the ad that ran after that. I mean, I do think the Carville response is a little bit disappointing because it doesn't seem to acknowledge that the current two parties are not sufficiently addressing the interests or providing satisfactory representation for a big chunk of the country. So it's sort of like, hey, the whole reason anybody's even talking about a third party is that people are so unhappy with the other two parties. And if your first response is, oh, I think this third party idea is ludicrous, it's beneath even commentary, and you're not going to look in the mirror and ask yourself, like, Why are so many people open to a third party, or at least considering themselves independents more than ever? And you just want to dismiss it as saying it's a vanity project. I think it almost underscores the reason why people want a third party. Like, in a way, if the Democratic and Republican parties said, hey, we get why people want a third party. We get why so many people are identifying as independents. It's because we're not doing our job and we look like a bunch of clowns who are just engaging in tribal warfare all the time. Then you would almost be a little bit more understanding of their perspective. But when they just immediately dismiss it and make believe like everything's fine, everybody loves these two parties, there's no need for a third party. Like, why would we ever want a third party? It kind of shows they're either tone deaf or they're just really angry at the idea of anything challenging them. And, if you believe in your party and you believe in what you're doing, you should be kind of in a come one, come all. Like, we want more competition. That's great. We're pro democracy. And if that means we have to fight harder to earn more votes and to hold on to the people that maybe we've taken for granted, then, that's the beauty of America. Like, that's what democracy should be about. At any rate, Think Beyond says they're not at all surprised by Carville's response. It's totally expected playing defense. Yeah, maybe you're right. Let's take a look at. There was a right conservative commentary. Let me see if I can find it. I think it was National Review. Okay, let's look at on the right side of the political spectrum and see what they said. And let me just share my screen here. While it loads. Okay, going forward to nowhere. This is the National Review, very conservative publication. Okay, they start with, as a general proposition, going forward beats the alternatives, but people don't always agree on where they should go forward to. The trio is attempting to get broad support by not specifying a destination. Okay, come on, load. Okay, while my slow poke computer loads, let me call out some of the live chat, because you guys have been pretty active today in the live chat. Think Beyond is saying that the left tube is ripping this effort because it's no anti-capitalism, but stance would go nowhere, is adding more social programs and regulation and capitalism. The spoiler effect is a lie. If a third party pulls votes away, it's because the major party is not attractive. No, I don't want. Golly, how many ads are in this thing? Where's the actual article? Seriously, bro. Is that the whole article? Maybe here. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I apologize, folks. This stream is, hopefully you've got a nice cup of coffee. Oh boy, here we go. I think I'm gonna pull it up now. This computer is just on its last legs, it feels like. Okay, here we go. So it looks like that National Review post was basically just a link to a Bloomberg article, which is also not super liberal. Let's see. Can we actually, there we go. Theirs will succeed, they reason, because polls show Americans are eager for an alternative. And the explanation that 2 former Republicans and 1 former Democrat, U.S. Rep. Jolly, New Jersey Governor Whitman, and Yang, offered in the Washington Post. What they say about their new party will stand for is vague to sound attractive. As a general proposition, going for beats alternatives, but people don't always. Okay, so this is basically the criticism of the Forward Party, that there's not enough of a policy platform, that they're not willing to list their kind of top issues the way you would normally expect, which I think is a fair criticism, actually. In fact, I was involved in a Twitter discussion. Hold on one second. I just got a tweet from. I just got a tweet from a DM from Rev Wendy, who I asked to come on, but she's actually about to host a panel of her own. But we'll get her in the future. Okay. Let me show you. Here's a thread. There was I'm not really super familiar with this person. She is Alicia Krause. And she was basically saying, hey, I'm not really I have questions about the Forward Party. So let me show you the thread, because I think it captures the criticism that, hey, this party sounds kind of hand wavy. I don't really know what the details are. So Alicia saying, I think she's pretty conservative, which is fine. But she's saying, hey, I have questions about the Forward Party. And then she asks, which is reasonable, where do you stand on role of federal government, state, local, Roe, Second Amendment, school choice, and basically saying, hey, there's a lot of fluff words in the online platform, and you're not willing to take a stand. So since I was in COVID isolation, I decided to engage in that conversation. And I said, let's see, where's my answer? Okay, where the hell is it? I may have to go back. Maybe it's here. No? Okay, hold on. Let me go back to my notifications. Here it is. So here's my reply to her. So she says, hey, what's the role of the government? Where do you stand on Second Amendment, school choice? This was, and I'm no representative of the Forward Party. I'm just a supporter of more competition in democracy in general. As you guys probably know from my work on ofthepeople.us, just like to see more people competing for votes. But what I try to summarize in my view of what the Forward Party is doing is, I said, hey, I think their experiment is to try to create a party where the main ideology is to use the best data available to figure out workable solutions to problems in a respectful way. So that's the religion of the Forward Party. It's not, oh, here's our list of hot button issues like yes or no or left or right on each of these things. But to take each of them individually, look at the data, and figure out what's workable that can actually get done, that makes things a little better and does it in a respectful way. And my point was, this is very different than how the other two parties go about things when they have their long list of purity tests. Because if you have your long list of purity tests, if you go to a cocktail party and you say like, oh, what's your position on abortion, guns, and religion? Like, it's very unlikely that you're going to arrive at some common ground solutions, because you're basically kind of just trying to sort people into one tribe or the other. And I think in some ways the Forward Party appears to be kind of anti-tribal and is saying, look, you could be historically a Democrat or Republican or Libertarian, whatever, Green, Reform, whatever. Let's just see if we can agree on some pragmatic solutions to big problems, and let's take them one at a time. And I think implicitly there isn't this sense of like, oh, and that will always be, whatever we come up with will always be the solution forever. It's a very kind of solution-oriented approach, which you would maybe more commonly see in business, or hopefully, well-run businesses. It would be very unusual to see that work in politics, which is why the Forward Party is kind of intriguing. It's like, what, really? You're just going to try and solve problems? You're not going to kind of brand people one way or the other, and you're willing to kind of look at new data as it comes in and to kind of test and learn. So, at any rate, Ethan has a good point. If you were pro-choice and pro-gun, you would not belong in either party. Yeah, that's true. It's definitely this whole notion of like, hey, they almost feel like fraternities or sororities. Like, you either are in the jock fraternity or you're in the nerd fraternity. But if you like physics and also play football, like, not sure where you belong, kind of thing. I don't know. For those of you who remember the Greek organizations in college, any rate. So, but I think in summary, on this point, I agree with the cognitive dissonance that some people have when they're like, wait a minute, if it's a new party, I'm expecting a long list of policies and positions. And this one is like, well, this party is not really based on specific policies, but more approaches to how to arrive at sensible policy. Sort of what are some common, principles that you can then use to unpack whatever hot topic there is of the day. Yeah, think beyond that. That'll be a very popular one. Okay, so let's take a look together at the actual op-ed. So we looked a little bit at what Carville said, what Bloomberg's, the article in Bloomberg that was critical. Let's take a look at what the actual Andrew Yang editorial in the Washington Post actually said. So let's see here if I can pull that up. Here we go. This is it, man. This is the big announcement by David Jolly, Christine Todd Whitman, and Andrew Yang. I should also thank Andrew. He and I were exchanging DMs, and we're trying to get a representative from his team onto this live stream. Couldn't do it on such short notice, but hopefully we'll get some Forward Party representatives to come on the show again in the future. We had Chris Conway on before. He was great. So hopefully we'll keep that conversation going. But in the meantime, you're going to get my interpretation of what they're doing. So what do they talk about in the editorial? First thing is note that Jolly and Whitman are Republicans, and as we know, Yang is a former Democrat. So what do they start with? They start talking about political extremism is ripping the country apart, that the Jan 6 committee talked about the potential demise of our democracy, and polarization is fueling a spike in intimidation, death threats, assassination plots. Yeah. If nothing is done, the U.S. will reach its 300th birthday. It will not reach its 300th birthday in recognizable form. That's why we're coming together as Democrats, Republicans, and independents to build a new unifying political party for the majority of Americans who want to move past divisiveness and reject extremism. So that's, I mean, if you had to kind of summarize, at least if you really did want to put the Forward Party in a political box, it sounds like pragmatic centrism or pragmatic moderates, but maybe willing to try new ideas. I don't know. Then it says 8 out of 10 Americans say the government is heading in the wrong direction. 2/3 of voters think neither the Republicans nor the Democrats have the right priorities. 30 million Americans believe violence against the current government is justified. People feel their voices are not heard and radicalized to take up arms, leading the mainstream to talk about civil war. So this is, I hate to bring this up, but I think Obama was right that when people have no hope and they feel like their future opportunities are limited and their voices aren't being heard or respected, they do resort to arms or identity issues and talk about civil war. So what do we say? What does Yang and Jolly and Whitman say? How do you remedy it? We need a new political party, one that reflects moderate common sense majority. Okay. So right there, for those who are wondering, like, well, policy wise, where is this party likely going to fall on any of the hot button issues? Like probably some reasonable center, which doesn't sound terrible. Today's outdated parties have failed by catering to the fringes. As a result, most Americans don't feel represented. Half of Americans consider themselves independents. 2/3 say a new party is needed and would vote for it. So that's the number that I would kind of push back on Carville and say, hey man, if you think this two-party system is so great, why do half of Americans consider themselves not a member of either? And why would 2/3 of those say that they would vote for a third party if you guys are doing such a great job? So that's the result. That's the reason that they are merging their 3 national organizations, which represent left, right, and center, to build a new party called Forward. 2 major parties have hollowed out sensible center of our political system, even though that's where most voters want to see them move. Okay, on guns, so here's an example. On guns, most Americans don't agree with calls from the far left to confiscate all guns and repeal the Second Amendment. But they're also rightfully worried about the far right's insistence on eliminating all gun laws. On climate, most Americans don't agree with calls to completely upend our economy, but they also reject the far right's denial that there is even a problem. On abortion, most Americans don't agree with the far left's extreme views on late-term abortions, but they are alarmed by the far right's quest to make a woman's choice a criminal offense. So if you hear people say, hey, the Forward Party is completely unclear on where it stands on some hot, political issues, like they kind of, if you read the editorial, it's all there. This is one of those things where again and again you see the narrative about a political issue, it doesn't even align with the facts. Like this one's provable. Like they basically have a whole paragraph on some of the hottest button issues. They're basically saying they want to go in the middle on each one. And then people say, oh, they have no policy positions. Let's see. To succeed, a new party must break down the barriers. Accordingly, we'll passionately advocate electoral changes such as ranked choice voting and open primaries, the end of gerrymandering, and the nationwide protection of voting rights, and push to make voting remarkably easy and secure for everyone. This is music to my ears. This is why I started ofthepeople.us to kind of introduce and give more exposure to more candidates. And it sounds like the Forward Party's looking to improve the underlying plumbing of how votes are done and how primaries are conducted. Without such changes, Americans will be left with a closed system and fewer options. Some call third parties spoilers, but the system is already spoiled. Well, that's a good line. There are more than 500,000 elected positions in the US, but a recent study found that 70% of races were unopposed and uncontested. A sliver of congressional seats will have close races. Two major parties have shut out competition, and America is suffering. So they're proposing the first open party of all stripes, Republicans and independents. And we are planning a liftoff at a national convention next summer, and we'll soon seek state-by-state ballot access. Nice. To run candidates in 2024 and beyond. We are actively recruiting former reps, govs, entrepreneurs, operatives, and community leaders to make it happen. America's founders warned about the dangers of a two-party system. Today, we're living with the dire consequences. All right. So, what do you all think of that editorial? I think it was pretty well written. I think it did actually try and stake out some territory, kind of like that wide center lane on a lot of issues. And it made the case that people aren't happy with the current two parties and that they're serious. And I guess you'll see the Forward Party get more serious in the 2024 cycle. But yeah, that's let's see. AM says, could the messaging be better? Yes, they're not doing a good job distinguishing between the fascist red and the mediocre lane blue. They can do better, but both parties still suck. I think the editorial was well written. Maybe the question is, how many people will read a Washington Post editorial? I mean, I myself am a political junkie, and I only read it in its entirety just now because I'm doing a live stream. So let's take a look at, if people hear about the Forward Party and are curious and they go to the Forward Party website, what do they see? So next, I think I'm going to do a little bit of an unboxing of the Forward Party website, and we'll look at it together and see what they say and what we like and what we don't like. However, before I do that, I do want to take a minute to thank some of the people that make the Nerds for Humanity show possible, and those are our channel members. So if you are watching this on YouTube, you can become a member by clicking on that join link, and that will enable you to support the creation of more content like this and cover some of our software costs and some of our podcast hosting costs. Who is helping us do that already? Let's give them a shout out. to our nerd members. At the highest level is our senior VP, Soldier One. Thank you, Soldier One, for all of your support. You've been a bedrock of the nerds community. At the VP level, we want to thank Kristen Slevin, Bike, and Stephen Jones. Thank you, thank you. And then at the hardcore nerd level, in order of time as member, we have Gene, David, DK, Jekalego, Kirsch, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn, Yang, Robert, Dean, Statnerd, Galessa, J. Perrin, AH, Dana, Jason, Parth, and Daniel. And Daniel also helped us get that StreamYard complimentary streaming cost. So thank you, Daniel, and thank you to StreamYard. And then at our entry level, it only costs $1.99 a month. You can become a verified nerd. Lisa, Albert, Brandon, Arez, your mom and Sophia, Mike, Doris, Emerald, Ben, Rasta, James, Emma, Hui, Elizabeth, Ira, Shoni, Jameson, Doctor, William, Karen, Ardens, Emery, Mai, Brittany, Juana, Warren, Lucky, Kevin, Nell, Walter, and Jeremy. And let's give a shout out to our newest nerds. Overall, our youngest nerds, who are our newest nerds. Oh, I just double clicked it. There we go. Jeremy Salmons, Walter Tex, and Daniel Battelle, our youngest nerds. So thank you for supporting the channel, everybody. Really appreciate it. Now, let's get on to what does this Forward Party website look like? All right. Let's unbox their site together. Here it is. So when you go to forwardparty.com, this is what you initially land on. And it looks like it's the big announcement. Yes, Elizabeth, I agree. It is great there are still members. It's not as many as before, but because of you members, I keep uploading and keep streaming because I'm like, well, if people are willing to pay a couple bucks a month to help make this happen, like, let's keep the show going. Okay. So it's a big announcement. After years of working in parallel, Forward, Renew, and Serve America formally merged to become the Forward Party, or Forward. And then you say learn more. I wonder where that goes. Oh, it goes to forwardtogether.org. Then there's the full announcement, which I presume is the Washington Post article. Oh no, I don't think so. Ooh, this is great. Well, let's take a look at the official announcement. Let's do this. It's a PDF in another tab. Here we go. This is the official PDF announcing all the goodness. There we go. So it says here, after working in parallel, the Renew America, Forward Party, and Serve America are pleased to announce a formal merger under one name, Forward. So it's no longer Forward Party. I imagine there needed to be some compromise because probably Renew America and Serve America didn't want to just say they were being acquired by Forward Party. And so everybody had to change their name. And so the new name is Forward. Coming together, Dems, Repubs, and Independents are joining forces to build more than just a new party, a new kind of party. A new kind, it's like Saturn, not a new car company, a new kind of car company. This will be a political home. Hit me up in the chat if anybody even recognizes that Saturn reference. It's for the Gen X people in the audience. Political forum for the majority of Americans who want to move past divisiveness, to foster free people, thriving communities, vibrant democracy. National convention in the summer of 23. They're looking for volunteers, and they will have a national tour to hear your ideas, seeking state-by-state party registration and ballot access. We will be recruiting solutions-oriented candidates to run for office at all levels. You know, if anybody from the Forward Party is listening, and if there were an opportunity for me to run for local office, nothing huge, but something where I could be useful, like maybe California State Assembly or something like that, hit me up. I'm not sure if my wife will let me, but it would be very tempting. The Forward Party will stand for doing, not dividing, means rejecting the extremes. Okay, so this official announcement, I would say, feels a little bit more hand-wavy than the Washington Post editorial. But, you know, it was good to read nonetheless. Oh, Miss Kuhn Hua says that she had a new Saturn. Yeah, man, it was super innovative company back in the day. It was like the Tesla of its day. No haggle pricing, dent-resistant exterior. Yeah, it's kind of a shame that it didn't take off. Okay, so let's go back to the Forward Party's website that we were unboxing. I got a lot of tabs open here, so let me clean up a little bit. Okay, so, ooh, yeah. I got some more content for you. So here, we go back to the Forward Party, forwardtogether.org website, which is different than forwardparty.com. So they probably are working on some consolidation of their websites, but what do they say? Different by design. We are reinventing what a political party should be. Every problem has a solution most Americans can support. We just have to cut out the extreme partisanship, reintroduce a competition of ideas, and work together in good faith. Okay, very reasonable. Discover, seek diverse and new ideas, come together around sensible solutions, deliver, actually do something, and move forward together. Not left, not right, forward. Then, Forward Party priorities: free people, revitalize a culture that celebrates difference and individual choice, rejects hate, removes barriers so that we can reach our full potential. Reinvigorate a fair, flourishing economy and open society. And reform our republic to give more choices in elections. Oh, and it has a learn more. Well, let's see if I scroll down. How we are different. Diverse thinking isn't just welcome, it's required. Bottom up, not top down. No purity tests. More listening, less talking. Working together, not against, and grace and tolerance. Yeah, so this is kind of summarizes this notion that it's more about how you come up with your yes, Rev Wendy is definitely a Forward Party person, because I asked her to come on this stream and she's like, oh, I'd love to come, but I'm actually leading a Forward Party panel locally in DC, I think, at the same time. So this kind of underscores how it's not really about any specific issue, but an approach to how to solve problems in a very pragmatic way. Yeah, Jackalego. A lot of people do forget about grace and tolerance. I will say, I know this may not be super popular, but on Twitter, there are definitely some folks that have the little blue hat icon signifying they used to be in the Yang Gang or are in the Yang Gang, who are totally not super graceful and tolerant. So yes, we should remind ourselves to be as graceful and tolerant as we can. Let's see, coming together has learn more about the partners. Ooh, FAQs. Let's take a look at those. Actually, this website's got some info. Why is a new party the answer? I think we know that. We know that one. Who's calling for this? Basically everybody. How will it be different? Open party, welcoming people, Democrats, Republicans, Independents. What about all the failed parties, third parties in the past? This is a good one. Times have changed. People are demanding a new option. Like small parties that formed around narrow world views, we are focusing on what brings a majority of us together, a political system that fixes our problems instead of giving us headaches. So that's definitely a key difference of approach than, let's say, the Green Party or, maybe Libertarian Party, which tend to be very much, against taxes or against carbon. Is this all about the 2024? No, there are 500,000 elected positions. Won't you be a spoiler? The system is already spoiled. 70% of elected positions only have one candidate. I think that's true. To be fair, in the 2024 presidential, if you had a scenario where Trump and, let's say, Biden were running against each other and the Forward Party mounted a, interesting candidate, let's say it was like Yang Whitman or something, you could see enough moderates getting pulled away from Biden to the Yang Whitman ticket that could potentially result in another 4 years of Donald J. Trump. So I think while they're right that there's tons of elections where there's no competition, on the presidential front, there will definitely be two. And a third could definitely change the equation. And so maybe then the question is, would the Forward Party run a presidential candidate, or would they would actually say, in the spirit of pragmatic problem solving, say, well, let's focus on the congressional races, or let's focus on the Senate, and let's get our own Joe Manchins in there, rather than necessarily compete in that presidential level. Maybe they will, I don't know. What are your short and long-term goals? This and next year, we're focused on building, expanding infra, getting communities involved by end of 23. They want ballot access by end of 24, 50 state organization. Okay. Who will be leading this newly combined organization? Maybe you. We're creating an innovative, growing org. Already we can count among our former governors, Congress members, presidential candidates, etc. Do you have a platform? Kind of. Free people, thriving communities, vibrant democracy. I would say their platform is their approach to solving problems versus any particular issue. Does that mean my forward candidate could disagree with other forward candidates? Yes. How are you funded? People powered. You can be sure that special interest groups aren't steering it in their favor from the donations that enable our work. Okay, what you'll notice here is they are not explicitly saying they will not take PAC money. I think they're saying it's people powered. But you could imagine they could have said, we will not take PAC money. So I think that's perhaps leaving the door open. And I have mixed feelings, because I think the reality is, if you want to start a third party, it's going to take a lot of money. So, you may have to take some of that money. On the other hand, it would be great to be able to say, the Ford party does not take any PAC money. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Let's see. BTS says, I think Biden will step down Kamala. Yes, okay. So if Biden doesn't run and you have Kamala versus Donald J. Trump, you could still see a third party pulling moderate votes away from Harris, and then it resulting in another 4 years of Trump. And golly, there's a perfect example of how, as much as I want more competition, I think another 4 years of Trump could be pretty devastating to us. I mean, look at this guy. Like, he politicized a freaking global pandemic. He defunded the World Health Organization in the middle of a pandemic. He made a mockery of public health mitigations. He started a trade war with China that then raised prices on all of our goods, and then, refused to say anything negative about the Saudis or the Russians, even though we know that they were meddling in our elections, and obviously now we know that they are invading their neighbors. Not to mention his revolving door of administration and just all of the drama with Donald J. Trump. God help us. Anyway, let's see if we have some other stuff in the chat here. Do you still think Biden will step down? I don't know. I hope he doesn't run again. I think Biden and Trump are too old, and we need some fresh ideas. And the presidency is a really tough job, and it's not really designed for people in their 80s. As much as I love people in their 80s, that's a hard job. It's the reason why Tom Brady is so unique, and he's not even in his 80s. Obviously, he plays a contact sport, but you get my picture. Now, if he does step down, I'm not of the mind that Harris would necessarily be the automatic nominee. I could see Buttigieg being really compelling, and I could see Gavin Newsom being really compelling. I know a lot of the folks on the right were really excited about the recall Newsom kind of campaign like 2 years ago. But having lived in California during that time, it was very strange to us why the right wing was so excited about this Newsom recall campaign, because it only required like 1,000 signatures or some small number or small percentage of people to want to do a recall. It's kind of like a nuisance recall, and obviously he overcame his recall by a large margin, and now he's a national political figure who's picking fights with DeSantis. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a sure thing that if there's no Biden, it's easily Harris. But I also don't, it's not clear to me that Biden's ready to step down, because I feel like he might feel like in his mind he's the only one that can beat Trump again. So if Trump runs, and he probably will, because he's Trump and he doesn't want to go down in history as a loser, even though he did lose, and he likes the attention, and maybe he needs the official presidential campaign to repel any DOJ investigation, because it makes it harder for them. Like, can you have the DOJ actively investigate a current presidential candidate from one of the two major parties? Like, won't that look like there's some potential risk for bias? So if Trump announces soon, that almost then triggers Biden feeling like he has to run. In a weird way, if Trump didn't announce or announced he wasn't running, I have a feeling Biden would not run. Anyway, someone was saying, interesting. Kamala seems like a good forward. I don't know. I think Kamala is more of a classic Democratic candidate. I could see, Buttigieg would have been a good one, but he'd be crazy to leave the Democratic Party. He's got a lot going for him in that party. Newsom could be interesting, but he also has a lot going for him. So you kind of, for the forward party, you've got to find people who don't have an obvious lane in the existing two parties. So like Whitman makes sense because she's a former governor. She kind of stepped away from the Republican Party. Yang obviously stepped away from the Democratic Party. But it's hard to imagine an A-list politician in either of the two parties taking the risk and joining the forward party. I mean, maybe. So Abijad is asking, do you think 4 more years of Biden is worse than 4 more years of Trump? No, definitely. I don't think 4 more years of Biden is worse. Absolutely not. I think 4 more years of Trump would be catastrophic. He basically ran up the national debt with that huge tax cut that he promised would pay for itself, and it didn't. He started a trade war with China, and everybody told him, all the economists says that if you put tariffs on China, the people that get punished are the American consumers. He did it anyway. He really fumbled the COVID mitigation, and refused to encourage people to get vaccinated because he knew that it would upset his kind of radical base. He has a very short attention span. He doesn't seem to have any convictions around anything other than him being popular and loved. And oh, by the way, he was willing to try and overturn a presidential election where he was clearly the beneficiary of it being overturned. I mean, it is the definition of anti-democracy. You think about it. Why was this country founded? It was to kick out a king. What is a king? A king is someone who stays in power against the wishes of the people. What did President Trump do? He lost the election. He then told everybody it was stolen, even though his entire team, his campaign team, White House counsel, FBI, DOJ, Vice President's office, his own daughter, they all told him, look, man, you lost 60 court cases, right? So he then riles up this crowd, is told they're armed and violent, and then sends them up to Congress, tells them that he's going to go with them, and gets to a point where they're literally guards are slipping in their own blood and getting beat the crap out of. And people are saying, hang Mike Pence, when his own Secret Service is calling their families, telling them this might be the end. And then he has the audacity to say that, oh, this is just some tourists that were showing love for the statues. It's like, dude, what videos are you watching? I know I'm getting on a tangent here, but let me show you a video here, because I'm so tired of hearing this. Oh, there was no violence here. I saw plenty of videos of security telling people to just peacefully go in, and they were encouraged by the Capitol Hill security to do so. And there was no violence. This is just left-wing propaganda. So let's just watch the video together. It's only 30 seconds. This is a clip actually from Liz Cheney's Twitter feed. But I want to put an end to this bull about, this was just a bunch of people, going on a tourist visit to the Capitol. Such bull, such a BS. Okay.
Multiple capital
Do these look like tourists? Is this America first? So anybody that says, oh, Trump didn't do anything wrong on Jan 6, the bro lost. He had a bunch of his supporters who were pissed that their guy didn't win, attacked the Capitol, not on any random day, on the day that a joint session of Congress is supposed to recognize the certified electoral votes from the states. So these people that keep talking about states' rights were trying to overthrow the federal government's desire to recognize those results from the states. You don't like those results? You go talk to your state representatives. Oh, unbelievable. So, yeah, sorry for the tangent, but yes, I do think 4 more years of Trump would be terrible because, number one, he's not going to be any sharper mentally. Number two, he's going to feel like completely unhinged because he's not going to have to worry about re-election. And number three, we kind of know what we got. Like, I don't know. I used to wake up every morning thinking to myself, what has this guy done? Any rate. Oh, okay. Elizabeth said he was always fired. Yeah, the guy went through like 4 or 5 chiefs of staff. I don't know how many attorney generals. It was crazy. Mickey says, I think you mean Tom. Do I have my new glasses? No. I ordered them in California where I live, but I'm currently in New York because I traveled out here and then got COVID on the way out here because a passenger sitting a couple seats to my right was coughing the whole way for 5 hours without a mask on. I'm not going to generalize, but I have a feeling they were not hardcore Democrats. I'm not sure. I don't know. They could be hardcore Democrats who chose to fly while they were sick and refused to wear a mask and were coughing all over everybody. But like clockwork, 3 days later, I test positive. I've never had COVID for 2 years, and I was wearing a mask, but 5 hours of BA5 when they're coughing right in your face, it's just, even my N95, I guess, couldn't defeat it. But then that resulted in me. I was supposed to fly back to California a few days ago. I would have been able to pick up my new glasses, but CDC guidelines are to not travel for 10 days since the first onset of symptoms. So I had to extend my trip, but I've been stuck in a New York City hotel room, separated from my family for a while. But so if you're flying, please be extra careful, because when you hear that cough, there's a good chance it's the big C. And a lot of the coughers don't wear masks. Ironically, the people who should be masked are not. And then the rest of us have to deal with it. Okay. My dear friend, I used to hate Trump. Now I want him to win. Well, you and I have to disagree on that one. I definitely do not want him to win. Okay. Ira, a member, says that the recall of Newsom was an epic failure from the right-wing propagandists. Yes, but the interesting thing is all of my MAGA friends and family were so convinced. They were like, oh my God, Newsom's going to get recalled. And I was like, no, he's not. And they're like, oh, but they're having the recall election. I was like, yeah, but to trigger that election, you only need like a couple thousand, activists to sign a petition. And I said, I think your news sources are making a big deal out of this because it makes it exciting to root for the governor of California to be kicked out because it aligns with all of your MAGA kind of narrative that California is just like disaster. By the way, I live in California. I love it. And then when he actually defeated the recall, they were shocked. They were like, wait, what's going on? How could he have defeated the recall? And some of them actually said maybe it was rigged. I was like, guys, could it be that your sources of information are painting a very distorted view of the world? And when the elections produce a different outcome than your sources of information gave you, it's not necessarily that those elections were rigged. It could be that your sources of information are rigged. That people say, oh, Tom, you're such a cheerleader for the propaganda about this COVID virus. You're such a cheerleader for the propaganda about climate change. All you need to do is take some vitamin D and you'll be fine. It's like, could it be that your source of information is propaganda? Could it be that you're not the one who took the red pill? At any rate, Elizabeth says, yes, Newsom is running ads in Florida. Yeah, let's take a look at that while we're here, because now we're just freestyling, because I think we've done the unboxing. Okay, before we do that, I do want to, we'll take a look at the Newsom ad. I do also want to take a moment to give a shout out to some of the trending candidates on ofthepeople.us, which is my nonprofit. It's open to any political party. It's just a way for people to get their campaigns known, and then you can click on the campaign, you can approval vote it, and that affects how we rank them. And you can sort by policy issue. You can sort by distance from your zip code, newest candidates, all-time most popular. Right now, the trending candidates are Rishi Kumar, who is actually running in my district. He's running against a 30-year incumbent. So in California, which is super awesome in that they basically do an open general election where the top two candidates in the primaries end up on the general election ballot. So in this case, they have two Democrats. Because otherwise, if you have a Democrat and a Republican in most California districts, then there's really no competition. It's just the Democrat that gets it. So they actually have two Democrats because they were the top two. And Rishi's running against a 30-year incumbent. And he's a good guy. I've met him a couple of times now. He's been on this show. I'm volunteering for him. He's an engineer, tech executive, successful city council member, and pro term limits, doesn't take PAC money, pro Medicare for all, Green New Deal. So, but most importantly, he hasn't been in Congress for 30 years like the incumbent. So, yeah, check him out. Then you got Larry Sharp, who actually got the Forward Party endorsement. He's running for governor. Jermaine Johnson, who's been on the show many times, running for re-election into the state house. John Fetterman, who might be a upset. I'm very proud that John Fetterman got listed on OTP well before he was kind of a big deal. So go ahead and check out ofthepeople.us and approval vote anyone you find interesting. And if you know someone running for office and wants to be listed there, it takes them 1 minute. It's free. It's just kind of like Yelp for political candidates. And I do want to also shout out the people that make OTP possible. And then we'll go to Gavin Newsom's ad. The patrons, these are people who help pay for our Amazon Web Services costs and our software licensing costs for other people, because it's completely all volunteer team. Eric Sanchez, Tohir T, Elizabeth O, Tony P, Rockout, Iggy C, Aaron S, John P, Rob, Timothy J, Jessica G, Trickle Up, Muhan Z, Travis C, Austin B, Mai Z, and Dylan Shell. So thank you to all of you Patreon supporters. And if you want to support OTP, just go to ofthepeople.us and click on accelerate this project, and I'll take you to our Patreon page. Okay, so now let's take a look at the Gavin Newsom ad. Gavin Newsom ad, Florida. Let's see. Pull it up here while it's loading.
It's in.
All right, here we go. Got it right away. Love it. I was a little worried I was going to have to sit through a bunch of ads, but luckily I am a YouTube Premium subscriber. Okay, here we go.
It's Independence Day, so let's talk about what's going on in America.
California's governor with a pointed message.
I urge all of you living in Florida to join the fight.
And Gavin Newsom makes no illusion who he's fighting.
Freedom is under attack in your state. Republican leaders, they're banning books, making it harder to vote.
A California governor running an ad in Florida?
Join us in California, but we still believe in freedom.
My question is, what's the point?
All right.
Netter is the man credited for launching the
So that's a little bit of Newsom. Like, why would you be running ads in Florida if you're not thinking about running for president? Let's see. Avajet says, I wanted Yang. If no Yang, then Trump. Yeah, I guess I could say I'm a never Trumper. I definitely would never want Trump in office again. Never wanted him in office to begin with. BTS is saying that if Biden resigns and Harris gets sworn in, I don't think he's going to resign. I mean, the only way, and it's possible, could be for health reasons. But I think Biden likes being president. If anything, the biggest risk is he decides to run for re-election. And I don't think Harris has been really kicking butt. I think she's been kind of so-so. Nora says, Kamala strikes as I think so. I think she's an insider pretty much. Elizabeth, yeah, that's interesting. What would happen at the end of Trump's second term? Would you put it past him to try for a third term? I mean, he basically tried to stay in office on Jan 6, right? Jan 6, like, remember the election was in November. Dude in January was still riling people up, organizing fake electoral. That's the greatest irony for the guy that was screaming about fake ballots. The only proven evidence is that his own team was the one that created these fake electoral votes. Crazy. I would not want to see what would happen with another after a second Trump term. Elaine says, if we have a choice of Biden versus Trump, yes, I think a Biden v. Trump general election would be the ultimate invitation for a forward candidate. Now, the problem with that also is that if that forward candidate drew more from Biden than Trump, and Trump won, that would be a pain in the ass. The other thing is, if none of the three candidates get a majority of those 270 electoral votes, sorry, not a majority of get 270 or more of the 400 and something electoral votes, then I think it gets decided by the House. And obviously the House is not going to be supporting a forward party candidate. I mean, maybe. If the forward party candidate got more votes than the other two, but didn't get a majority of the electoral votes, would the House vote against their own parties? Unlikely. So I think that's why, if it were up to me, I'm kind of hoping the Forward Party focuses on congressional races and state races, and maybe considers, if not staying out of the presidential, participating, but ultimately pressuring each of the two candidates to support their policy positions and then eventually backing one of them. But, who knows what they're thinking. I mean, it's their party. They can do what they want. Let's see. Elizabeth says that Trump wouldn't let it go. Yeah, so if Trump then lost, would he exercise self-constraint and hold on, my wife's calling me. Let me just tell her that I can't talk right now. Okay. Would he exercise constraint and tell his people to stand down and concede? Like, has anybody seen him? I don't think I mean, we know from his outtakes that he was unwilling to say that the election is over in January, even when all of his team told him it was done. Let's see. Yeah, it is ironic that the Republicans that were screaming the loudest about election integrity are the ones that are most guilty of messing with it. Yeah, he was. I mean, and Dominion has sued Sidney Powell for defamation. And in her defense attorneys have said, well, no reasonable person would have taken her allegations seriously because she had no evidence. It's like, oh my God. Like, you're basically saying I should never have been taken seriously, so that's why I'm not guilty of defamation. When you are working with the president's dream team with Giuliani and Jennifer Ellis, sprouting all kinds of random crap about Chavez and Soros and Italian satellites and whatever. Jackalego saying, I think you were responding to an earlier discussion of my COVID. Yeah, I'm feeling better. I tested negative for the first time today and getting better every day. And if you have family members who get COVID and they're experiencing a difficult time with the symptoms, which I was, like, my first day, I was like really wrecked, just felt like people were punching me and I couldn't breathe so well. I mean, I could breathe good enough, but I was definitely shallow breathing. And then I started Paxlovid, and it helped with the symptoms right away. Now, I know there's going to be a good chance of a rebound infection or positivity test, but it definitely helps you with the symptoms. Like, I felt way better within a few hours. It doesn't make it go away. Like, people are like, oh, it's just the sniffles. It's definitely worse than the sniffles. I was out of commission for all week, and I don't have the kind of stamina that I had before I got COVID. So, but hopefully I'll get a little better each day. So thanks for all the well wishes, folks. Austin says, with the wide variety of ideologies, I wonder how the bottom-up structure will function. Yeah, what could be interesting is you could have a Forward Party convention where they actually argue and discuss policy positions in a way that the current two parties, those conventions are like kind of, kabuki theater, like everything's already decided in advance and it's just kind of like a ceremonial thing. But you could imagine a Forward Party convention where they're discussing abortion and gun control and climate change. Like, there's going to be different perspectives on that, and how they come together and arrive at some sensible middle, like, would be really interesting to see. So if they do a Forward Party convention, and if there's an opportunity to go, I might be very tempted to go. And at a minimum, I would cover it for the Nerds channel and maybe even try and have my voice heard, because I do kind of identify with this kind of data-driven sensible problem-solving approach. Ira says, the app I'm using is Ground News, shows all sides of different news. Oh, that's kind of cool. I'll have to check it out. Thanks for the recommendation, Ira. And thank you for being a member, by the way. Let's see. Elizabeth is also a never Trumper. I'm not surprised. I mean, I was a never Trumper when he ran the first time. And then I thought, well, maybe he'll moderate himself when he gets into the White House, and this is all kind of an act. And he just went freaking crazy, as we know. Let's see. Ira, do you think the House and Senate will ever vote to get term limits in place? That's a tough one. I mean, I think there are legitimate arguments for why some term limits might be too aggressive. Like if you can only be in there for one term, it may be hard to be effective. Actually, Tim Ryan and I discussed this when he was on this show, trying to get him back on. So if anybody knows Tim Ryan's team, let them know. We'd love to have him back on the Nerd Show. But I think there's probably a middle ground, which is, like as an example, in my district, the Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, I think she's been in Congress for 30 years. 30 years is a long time. Now, like, let's say if Rishi Kumar beats her, does that mean he needs to leave after 2 years? No. But maybe you could do it something similar to the presidents. Like, how presidents can only be in office for 8 years? Maybe Congress people should only be in office for a maximum of 8 years, or at least like 8 consecutive years. We could start there. That's not going to make the hardcore term limit people super happy, but it's better than nothing. And, there are a lot of anti-term limit people who might accept 8 years, and, maybe that's a good example of trying to find the middle. Oh, I'm sorry that your son had it. Hopefully your son, I think younger people hold up better, but sadly I'm no longer in that category. But I hope your son gets well soon. Top convention host cities. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't need a lot of people to ask me to go to Vegas because it's conveniently located, has great food. I've been known to play cards from time to time, so that would be awesome. All right, I think we covered most of the questions. If you have any other questions or topics you want to discuss, go ahead and put it in the live stream. And before you go, but I'm happy to hang out for longer, please like and share this live stream so we can increase awareness for this content. And then I think the last thing is I'll just do a quick check on what is going on with Yang's Twitter feed, and we'll take a look at what he's tweeting about, just for up to the minute Yang news. So let's see here. Let's go to my Twitter, and then we'll go to Andrew Yang. Well, I have 8 notifications. Let me just check those first. A lot of people liking the tweet of me telling everybody there's a live stream. So on that one explanation I gave, remember that Alicia woman who was like, hey, I don't know what the hell the Forward Party is about. And I tried to explain, like, hey, it's not about any policy position. It's about an approach. She said, oh, you said it better than their website. I will say that I think their website does a pretty good job, but maybe it isn't as clear. Like maybe the Forward Party could be a little bit more direct and say, hey, the number one policy position for the Forward Party is how we arrive at policy positions. And our approach to doing it is very data-driven. It's using the best evidence available. It's also trying to find workable solutions that are actually passable, and we try and do that in a really respectful and inclusive way. So You know, there's that. So what were the other notifications? Oh, someone's not happy with Yang. Quit trying to ruin our country. Yang is not the answer. Then what the F are we going to do? So there you go. All right, let's see what Yang is talking about. So he's got the new cover art here with just a single word forward. He has pinned the announcement that they're joining forces. Retweeted an RIP of Bill Russell. Okay, so he's going to be talking with the co-CEO Matt Shiners about the Forward Party. That's on Monday, tomorrow. You know, I agree. Andrew has kept it under the lid for a while. Then he's talking about getting the word out. Oh, they have some merch now. And yeah, I think this is a pretty good one. I mean, if you are a part of the media establishment, either on the Fox side or the CNN side, it's very profitable to just play to the home team, and it's work to try and find a neutral middle, and it's not very exciting TV to kind of find the reasonable center. So that's the reality. I mean, I think that's part of the problem with this two-party system. It's not only that those two parties don't want to let go, but there's a lot of money to be made from dividing the country. Like, who makes a lot of money by finding pragmatic center solutions? Like, do you think CNN is going to break any viewership records, or Fox is going to break any viewership records if they say, hey, wait a minute, there's a reasonable middle here around climate change, and we can do it in a way that's deficit neutral, and we can do it in a way that supports transition to renewable fuels, but still protects people who rely on the fossil industry currently for their livelihood. Like, that is not exciting content, as you can tell, like with our, very small live stream today. Although I have to say, 39 concurrents is a record. Haven't had this many in a while. Let's see. Yeah, Toby is saying, hey, Tim's running. I know. I don't think there's anything upside for Tim coming back on the Nerd Show, because then he's just going to be kind of, well, one, they're going to be like, why are you on this random channel? And two, they're going to be like, oh, isn't that guy like a never Trumper? And I think Tim's trying to pull off some potential kind of conservative votes to get the big win. But like I was saying, like, if you want sensational content to drive lots of eyeballs, to get a lot of ads, the sensible center is like totally not going to be nearly as exciting as saying, oh, the Democrats are trying to burn down the cities, or, oh, the Democrats are trying to take away your pronouns. They're coming for your pronouns. Hold on to your pronouns, Or on the other side, oh, the Republicans are trying to remove all rights from all people forever. Or those Republicans are, trying to have a Confederate flag put on, in every school. Like, that's like, people react to those kind of sensational headlines and commentators and stuff. And that's going to be the Forward Party challenge, is like, will this kind of sensible majority give them enough attention and make them relevant. Because if you're watching this and you want a third party or you want more choices, like you've got, in a way, like we have to make the forward party viable, even if we don't agree with everything they do, if you want more competition. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck with a repeat of what we have right now for the next 20 years. And I'm not sure the country could really survive another like 2 decades of inept gridlock, or even worse, like further extreme polarization. So hopefully the forward party does well. We'll try and get some forward party representatives. I'm also trying to get a reform party representative on the show. Maybe I'll try and reach out and get a Green and Libertarian as well. I know we had Joe Jurgensen on before, which was very cool on the Libertarian side. So before you go, give me a like. If you really want to support the channel, click the join link on YouTube. But if you say, oh, I like Nerds for Humanity, not ready to pay $1.99 a month, just hook me up with a like. That's all I'm asking for right now. And maybe comment below if there are future topics that I should include in future streams. All right. Goodbye, nerds.